How has the digital revolution affected the views towards live music in Cardiff? My research will explore how this exposure explosion from the digital revolution has changed the way in which consumers view the importance of their own local music scenes and the music's relevance in reflecting their views. Has this ease of access and superfluous content online made it easier for consumers to find their voice in reflective music? Or has the bewildering torrent of information forced them to instead explore local talent that might better suit their tastes? Validity. Validity for my research comes from investigating the changing role of cultural intermediaries in the digital landscape and how their removal can inspire creativity and a direct connectivity with an audience. They allow specific organisations to shape the trajectory of musical progression through a narrow and reductionist aesthetic definition of culture. Will this empowerment to the artist through disintermediation allow greater artistic freedom, allowing for more relevant and reflective work of that individual society in his or her musical output? This is also combined with a study of the gradual change of music journalism from a polyglottic approach favouring individual opinion to a monoglottic representation favoured in a bureaucratic landscape. By giving everyone the power to judge and review music, there will be no musical maven to uncover and deliver new talent. Creativity may stagnate as the consumer creates his or her own rules for acceptance. This can be seen in a new ability to judge others' reviews and feedback through likes on Facebook and advice ratings on Amazon. The investigation will use both correlational and explanatory research. The research will attempt to uncover a relationship between the growing influence of digital media, music journalism, and the views towards live music in Cardiff. The research will also attempt to uncover the reasons why digital media has affected these views towards live music in Cardiff. Hypothesis. There will be a positive correlation between the rise of the digital marketplace and the consumer's demand for live local music performance. With the growth of the internet and digital media, consumers are better able to acquire their own musical tastes, create their own specific music to suit those criteria, and advertise it electronically through social networking. Therefore, the thoughts of individuals and locales are easier to access and witness live. This digital growth and transfer of power to the public will enable musicians to better reflect their thoughts locally, creating a relevant live scene. Research strategy. The people in local music scenes work with a freedom not found in other industries. To get an in-depth response and valid data, interviews will be necessary. The research will follow the interpretivist model via an ethno-methodological approach. Due to already being a member of the participants grouping, I already have access to the social world of my research, and therefore permissions for interviews should cause little hindrance. Ethical issues for qualitative research. An ethical issue in my research will be personal bias. To combat this, I'll make the questions as open as I can, making sure that my pursuit of congruent answers between interviewees is not made apparent in my interviewing style. Critiques of qualitative data. The findings rely too much on the researcher's unsystematic views about the significance of certain topics. The responses of participants to the researcher will also be dictated by age, gender and personality, these responses then being interpreted by the subjectivity of the researcher. My research will deal with students aged 18 to 25 in Cardiff. By limiting my criteria, I remove the ability to generalise my findings, but at a necessary cost to alleviate expenses of time and money. This will also mean my findings are more specific and in-depth towards this group of people, increasing the internal validity of my research. Selecting a method. Interviews will be the most appropriate research, as they will enable the study of complex and sensitive areas relevant to the cultural change. Due to beginning with a relatively clear hypothesis, my interviews will follow a semi-structured guide gathering more applicable results. The strength of interviewing will also allow me to expand upon important information during the process to gain better results. Open-ended questions will allow respondents to express themselves freely, reducing the effects of investigator bias. Common interview techniques. An interview guide will allow me to ensure that interviewees address certain topics. I will also employ steering to direct the flow of conversation through use of interjection. This will help increase valid responses and decrease the time taken to analyse useful material. I will first contact key informants for interviews, cultural experts who are most knowledgeable in the field. This will include promoters and staff in live venues who will offer a valuable insight into the research criteria. By audio taping the interviews, I will gather a manifest record of observations and dialogues. More than remembered or handwritten accounts, it can also provide reactions beyond words, sighs, exclamations, slang or phrases associated with certain social groups. The negative side to audio taping is that it may impact the way in which people respond to the questions, changing their honesty in their answers. Conducting pilot interviews can also improve technique in preparation for the real scenario. Advantages and disadvantages of qualitative interviewing. Qualitative interviews have the opportunity to prepare a respondent before asking questions and also explain any that the interviewee does not understand. It is possible for the investigator to obtain more in-depth information through personal interaction. Interviews can provide a more natural response from individuals and also allow the interviewer to probe and deviate from written guides and schedules to obtain relevant material. Disadvantages. Interviews can be time-consuming and expensive. The quality of the data depends upon the quality of the interaction and the quality of the interviewer. The researcher may introduce his or her bias towards the question. Methods of sampling. Ethnographic research often uses a combination of convenience and snowball sampling. Researchers are often forced to gather information from whatever sources they can find from whoever is willing to participate. Convenience sampling makes use of anyone available who is willing to participate. For this research project, sending consent forms per permission to interview students who fit the criteria will be one way of securing participants. Snowball sampling. The researcher makes initial contact with a group of people who then establish connections with others who may help with the research. The problem with this method is it is unlikely that the sample would accurately represent the population. Data analysis. Qualitative research frequently creates large, cumbersome databases due to its reliance on field notes and interview transcripts. The researcher must guard against the collecting of too much unnecessary data to keep the research significant to the social sciences. This research will use grounded theory. Grounded theory has changed over time, thus more analytic tools are added as writings progress. One of these is coding. This is the key process in grounded theory, where data is broken down into parts of theoretical significance. Codes serve as shorthand devices to compile and organize data. There are 3 types or stages in the coding process. Open coding will consist of categorizing interview transcripts. These will include sections on DIY musicianship, music journalism, and local live performance. Axial coding will be a comparison of the interviews by finding similar responses to questions that also link chosen categories together. These links establish validity for the results. Selective coding will be used to establish the main criteria and most commonly referenced response to the questions. This will then be related to the subcategories, which can be further examined and refined. Research instrument. This is a copy of the interview schedule. What do you prefer listening to, live or recorded music? Why? The real purpose for this question is to interject with why, regardless of their answer. Therefore, if the interviewee does prefer live music, they will state their reasons, hopefully supplying relevant information for the study. When looking for new artists, do you search for signed artists or local talent? The expected answer for this question will be a mixed response. I can add the question, do you watch more live music than you used to? Why? Or if I'm interviewing a key informant, do more people watch live music than they used to? Why do you think that is? Third question. Has the internet changed how you find new music to listen to and watch live? This is an open-ended question. It should give insights into the growing effects of social media in the digital revolution. Would you say local music is more relevant to you? Are your views and experiences echoed in that music? This question may need explaining to the interviewee, as I'm expecting most people to search for certain genres, not music that reflects their beliefs. As a personal, face-to-face conversation, the advantages of this interview will allow me to guide the participant to a useful answer. Final question. Who do you trust for opinions on music? Friends, magazines, internet reviews? This question addresses the rising prevalence of monoglottism in music journalism. Answers from participants can be probe for reasons of distrust for any of these sources, adding to the categories that can be broken down through coding later. Limitations. The problem with this study is it only looks at a small sample, university students of a certain age. Even when viewing the research as a case study of this demographic, snowball sampling may lower the variety of interviewees. Looking for significant scientific data in a small-scale qualitative research plan will be difficult. Analysis through coding and grounded theory may prove time-consuming, especially considering the amount of interviews the research will require to establish trends in the answers. Predicted findings. Key informants promoters will support the notion that digital media and DIY musicianship has led to a broader, more varied live scene. The general sample, students, will show an increased interest in live local music through the influence of the internet. They will also show an increasing disregard for the views of the music press, and instead trust friends and internet reviews more readily. The removal of cultural intermediaries will also have made live local music more relevant to the ideas of the local public. Students will show an increased interest in live acts, therefore. Relevance to the researcher. The emphasis on interviewing is of great interest as a future possible job prospect. Any project that focuses on improving the skill, while also understanding the thoughts and habits of direct peers, is vital in my career trajectory. Music journalism, reviewing, social commentary on the changing face of music. As a DIY musician, often basing work on social reflection, the findings in the study will also help dictate artistic direction and better methods to market my own work.